The Art of Ignoring People. Protect your peace, set boundaries, and focus on what truly matters. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. Have you ever noticed how one harsh comment can ruin your whole day, while 100 kind words barely move you? That is the hidden trap of giving too much power to other people. We spend so much of our lives trying to be understood, approved of, accepted and praised, that we slowly begin to lose ourselves. We explain too much. We react too quickly. We carry opinions that were never meant to become our burden. But what if peace was never about making everyone happy? What if real strength began the moment you stopped handing out control of your emotions to people who do not deserve it? This audiobook is not about becoming cold, rude, or heartless. It is about becoming wise. It is about learning the art of ignoring the voices that drain your energy, the opinions that weaken your confidence, and the people who only enter your life to disturb your peace. It is about setting boundaries without guilt, protecting your time without apology, and focusing on what truly matters before life passes by in the noise of everyone else's expectations. If you have ever felt tired of people's judgments, exhausted by overthinking, or trapped in the need to please everyone, this journey is for you. Because once you learn the art of ignoring the wrong people, you finally make room for the right life. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why we crave everyone's approval. From the moment we enter the world, we begin searching for acceptance. As children, we smile when our parents praise us. We feel proud when our teachers recognize our efforts. We enjoy the warmth of friendship because it makes us feel like we belong. This desire is not a weakness, it is part of being human. For thousands of years, survival depended on being accepted by a group. Those who were rejected often faced danger alone. Our brains still carry traces of that ancient instinct, even though the world has changed. Today, being excluded from a tribe rarely threatens our survival, yet our minds often react as if it does. A critical comment from a coworker, an unanswered text message, or a stranger's opinion on social media can trigger feelings of anxiety and self-doubt. We begin questioning ourselves, wondering if we said the wrong thing, made the wrong choice, or somehow failed to meet another person's expectations. The problem is not that we appreciate kindness or value healthy relationships. The problem begins when our self-worth becomes dependent on someone else's approval. The moment we allow another person's opinion to determine how we feel about ourselves, we hand over control of our happiness. Instead of living according to our values, we begin living according to the expectations of others. Approval can be addictive. Every compliment feels rewarding, and every criticism feels painful. Gradually, we start making decisions based not on what is right for us, but on what is most likely to earn praise or avoid disapproval. We hesitate to express our true opinions. We say yes when our hearts want to say no. We remain silent when we should speak, and speak when silence would serve us better. Without realizing it, we become actors performing for an audience instead of authors writing our own lives. Modern society makes this struggle even harder. Every day, we are surrounded by carefully edited images of success, beauty, wealth, and popularity. Social media encourages comparison by displaying the highlights of other people's lives while hiding their struggles. We begin measuring our worth through likes, comments, promotions, possessions, and public recognition. It becomes easy to believe that our value depends on how many people approve of us. But approval is one of the most unstable foundations on which to build a life. People's opinions change constantly. Someone who praises you today may criticize you tomorrow. One group may celebrate your choices while another completely disagrees with them. If your confidence rises and falls with every opinion, your emotional life becomes a roller coaster controlled by strangers. Think about the people you admire most. History's greatest innovators, artists, leaders, and thinkers were rarely loved by everyone. Many faced criticism, rejection, misunderstanding, and even ridicule. Their strength did not come from universal approval. It came from remaining faithful to their purpose despite opposition. They understood something that many people never learn. Being respected is far more valuable than being liked, and even respect cannot be earned from everyone. Another reason we crave approval is fear. We fear rejection because rejection feels personal. We imagine that if someone disagrees with us, we must not be good enough. Yet, disagreement does not define your worth. Every person views the world through their own experiences, beliefs, insecurities, and expectations. Their opinion often says as much about them as it does about you. Consider how impossible it is to satisfy everyone. If you are quiet, some people will call you shy. If you are outspoken, others will say you talk too much. If you pursue success, some will accuse you of being ambitious for the wrong reasons. If you choose a slower, simpler life, others may call you unmotivated. No matter what path you take, someone will disagree. Once you accept this truth, an enormous burden begins to lift. You no longer have to spend your life chasing an impossible goal. This realization does not mean ignoring everyone or refusing all advice. Constructive feedback from people who genuinely care about your growth is valuable. Wise mentors, trusted friends, and loving family members can help you see blind spots and become a better version of yourself. The key is learning the difference between guidance that helps you grow and approval that controls your identity. Real confidence is quiet. It does not demand applause because it already knows its value. It allows you to listen without becoming defensive, to learn without becoming insecure, and to walk away from unnecessary judgment without carrying it home. It reminds you that your worth existed long before someone praised you, and it remains unchanged even when someone criticizes you. The journey toward inner peace begins with one simple decision. Stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. The more you build your identity on your character, your values, and your purpose, the less power other people's opinions will have over your emotions. You will still appreciate kindness and healthy relationships, but you will no longer depend on them to feel complete. The greatest freedom does not come when everyone accepts you. It comes when you finally accept yourself. And once that happens, approval becomes a pleasant bonus, not a necessity for living a peaceful and meaningful life. Chapter 2. The Hidden Cost of Caring Too Much. Imagine carrying a backpack that grows heavier every time someone judges you. At first, the weight is barely noticeable. A critical remark from a friend, a disappointing look from a family member, or a negative comment from a stranger seems small enough to ignore. But over time, those moments begin to pile up. Before long, you're carrying the expectations, opinions, and judgments of dozens of people. The backpack becomes so heavy that you forget what it feels like to walk freely. This is what happens when we care too much about what other people think. Most people believe caring is a virtue, and in many ways it is. Caring about your family, your work, your relationships, and your responsibilities reflects compassion and maturity. But there is an important difference between caring about people and caring excessively about their opinions. One strengthens your life. The other slowly steals it. When you constantly seek approval, your mind is always on high alert. Every conversation becomes something to analyze. Every facial expression feels like a hidden message. Every delayed reply makes you wonder if you've done something wrong. Instead of living in the present, you begin living inside your own imagination, creating stories that often have little connection to reality. Think about how many hours people spend replaying conversations in their heads. They wonder if they sounded intelligent enough, if they should have answered differently, or if someone secretly judged them. Days later, they're still reliving a moment that everyone else has already forgotten. This mental habit is exhausting because it demands enormous emotional energy without producing anything useful. While your mind is busy worrying about what someone may think of you, it has less energy to solve problems, pursue dreams, enjoy meaningful relationships, or appreciate the present moment. There is another hidden cost that many people never recognize. People-pleasing slowly erases your identity. If your goal is to make everyone happy, you eventually stop asking yourself an important question. What do I actually want? Instead, every decision becomes based on someone else's expectations. You choose careers because they impress others. You stay in unhealthy relationships because you're afraid of disappointing people. You avoid opportunities because you're worried about criticism. You silence your opinions because disagreement feels uncomfortable. Little by little, your authentic self disappears behind a carefully constructed version designed to earn approval. Ironically, the more desperately you try to please everyone, the less genuine your relationships become. People no longer know the real you. They know the version of you that never says no, never disagrees, never expresses frustration, and never asks for anything in return. Eventually, this creates resentment. You begin wondering why no one appreciates your sacrifices. Yet the truth is that many people never asked for those sacrifices in the first place. They simply accepted the version of yourself that you continuously offered. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of caring too much is that it gives enormous power to complete strangers. Consider someone who shares a piece of work online. Hundreds of people leave encouraging comments, but one anonymous person writes something cruel. Instead of remembering the encouragement, the mind becomes obsessed with the criticism. Hours later, the negative comment is still echoing in their thoughts, while the positive ones have already been forgotten. This is not because humans are weak. It is because our brains are naturally wired to notice potential threats more than compliments. Thousands of years ago, paying attention to danger increased the chances of survival. Today, however, that same survival instinct often causes us to treat opinions as if they were life-threatening dangers. The result is unnecessary anxiety. You begin editing your personality before speaking. You hesitate before making decisions. You avoid risks because failure might invite criticism. Instead of growing through experience, you become trapped inside the invisible prison of other people's expectations. Imagine someone who dreams of starting a small business. They spend months researching, planning, and imagining the possibilities, but every time they think about taking the first step, they hear imagined voices saying, "What if you fail? People will laugh at you. Your family will think you're irresponsible." Eventually, fear wins, years pass, and the business never begins. Ironically, the pain of regret becomes far greater than the temporary discomfort of criticism ever would have been. This is the true price of caring too much. It doesn't just steal today's peace, it quietly steals tomorrow's opportunities. Fortunately, there is another way to live. It begins by recognizing a simple truth. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Some opinions come from wisdom, experience, and genuine concern. Those are worth considering. Others come from jealousy, insecurity, ignorance, or personal bias. Those opinions deserve far less space in your mind. Learning to tell the difference is one of the most valuable emotional skills you can develop. Whenever you find yourself worrying about someone's judgment, pause and ask yourself a few honest questions. Does this person's opinion truly improve my life? Do they understand my goals, values, and circumstances? Have they earned the right to influence my decisions? If the answer is no, then perhaps their opinion deserves to pass through your mind instead of taking up permanent residence there. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Every minute spent worrying about unnecessary criticism is a minute taken away from your dreams, your relationships, your health, and your happiness. The goal is not to become indifferent or uncaring. It is to become intentional. Care deeply about the people who genuinely love you. Care about your character. Care about living with integrity. But stop giving unlimited emotional access to people who have done nothing to earn it. Life becomes lighter the moment you realize that peace is not found by convincing everyone to approve of you. Peace is found by choosing whose voices truly deserve a place in your heart. When you stop carrying the weight of every opinion, you finally have the strength to carry your own purpose instead. Chapter 3. Recognizing the people who steal your peace. Not everyone who enters your life deserves a permanent place in your mind. This may sound harsh at first, especially if you've spent years believing that every relationship must be preserved at all costs. But one of the greatest lessons in emotional maturity is understanding that while you should treat everyone with respect, you are not obligated to give everyone unlimited access to your time, attention, or emotional energy. Peace is precious. Like your health, it can be strengthened or slowly destroyed, depending on the environment you live in and the people you surround yourself with. Some individuals inspire confidence, encourage growth, and make life's burdens feel lighter. Others leave you emotionally exhausted after every interaction, even if the conversation lasted only a few minutes. Learning to recognize the difference is not an act of judgment. It is an act of self-protection. One of the first people who can quietly steal your peace is the chronic critic. Constructive criticism is valuable because it helps you improve. Chronic criticism is different. These people rarely acknowledge your progress. No matter what you accomplish, they immediately point out what is missing, what could have been better, or why your success isn't impressive enough. Imagine working for months to complete an important project. Instead of saying, "You did a great job," someone immediately says, "You should have done this differently." One comment may not seem harmful, but repeated over months or years, constant criticism slowly convinces you that nothing you do is ever enough. Then there are manipulators. Manipulative people often disguise control as concern. They know exactly how to make you question yourself without taking responsibility for their own behavior. They may use guilt to influence your decisions, making you feel selfish whenever you choose your own needs. They may twist conversations until you apologize for problems you didn't create. They often leave you feeling confused, emotionally drained, and uncertain about your own judgment. Healthy relationships create clarity. Manipulative relationships create confusion. Another group to watch carefully is the attention seeker. These individuals constantly redirect every situation toward themselves. Your victories become their stories. Your struggles become opportunities for them to gain sympathy or admiration. Conversations rarely feel balanced because everything eventually revolves around their needs, opinions, or emotions. At first, you may mistake this behavior for confidence or charisma, but over time you realize that being around them feels emotionally one-sided. You spend more time giving than receiving, listening than being heard, and supporting than being supported. Then there are chronic complainers. Everyone experiences difficult seasons, and everyone needs support from time to time. But chronic complainers are different. They don't seek solutions. They collect problems. Every conversation revolves around what is wrong, who disappointed them, or why life is unfair. Eventually, their negativity becomes contagious. Without realizing it, you begin seeing the world through the same pessimistic lens. Hope fades. Gratitude disappears. Problems seem larger than opportunities. Spending too much time around constant negativity slowly changes your own emotional climate. Perhaps the most dangerous people, however, are those who disguise jealousy as friendship. These individuals celebrate your failures more comfortably than your successes. They become unusually quiet when good things happen in your life. Instead of encouraging your dreams, they subtly discourage them with statements like, "Are you sure that's realistic?" Or, "People like us don't usually succeed at things like that." On the surface, their words may sound practical. Beneath the surface lies discomfort with your growth. Imagine a coworker who constantly criticizes every achievement you make. Whenever you receive recognition, they immediately point out why it wasn't a big accomplishment, or why someone else deserved it more. After enough experiences like this, you may begin shrinking your own success simply to avoid their negativity. Instead of feeling proud of your progress, you start apologizing for it. That is how peace is quietly stolen, not through one dramatic event, but through repeated emotional erosion. Another category includes those who thrive on drama. Some people feel uncomfortable when life is peaceful. They constantly create conflict, spread gossip, exaggerate misunderstandings, or encourage unnecessary arguments. Wherever they go, tension seems to follow. If you pay attention, you'll notice something remarkable. Peaceful people solve problems, while dramatic people create them. The more time you spend around unnecessary conflict, the more emotionally reactive you become. Eventually, chaos begins to feel normal, even though it slowly drains your mental health. Recognizing these patterns requires honesty. Sometimes we continue unhealthy relationships because we've known someone for years. We believe history alone justifies continued emotional investment. But the length of a relationship does not determine its quality. A friendship that constantly damages your confidence is not healthier simply because it has existed for a long time. This doesn't mean you should immediately cut people out of your life whenever they disappoint you. Every person has flaws. Everyone makes mistakes. Healthy relationships include forgiveness, understanding, and honest communication. The key is recognizing patterns rather than isolated incidents. Ask yourself a few simple questions. How do I usually feel after spending time with this person? Inspired or exhausted? Understood or judged? Encouraged or discouraged? Peaceful or anxious? Your emotional state often reveals more than your logical explanations. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is realizing that protecting your peace sometimes requires distance rather than confrontation. Not every relationship needs a dramatic ending. Sometimes reducing contact, limiting emotional access, or quietly stepping back is enough. You do not owe everyone unlimited availability. You do not owe everyone endless explanations. And you certainly do not owe anyone your peace. Remember that your goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. It is to become wise about where your energy goes. Life is too short to spend it constantly recovering from conversations that should never have happened or relationships that consistently leave you feeling smaller than you are. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your growth, respect your boundaries, challenge you with kindness, and encourage you to become your best self. Those relationships will never demand that you sacrifice your peace in exchange for acceptance. The people you allow closest to your heart will influence the person you become. Choose them carefully. Your future happiness depends on it. Chapter 4. The difference between ignoring and letting go. Many people misunderstand the idea of ignoring someone. They imagine it means becoming cold, bitter, or emotionally detached from the world. They picture silent treatment, revenge, or pretending another person does not exist. But that is not what this audiobook is about. There is a world of difference between ignoring someone out of anger and letting go out of wisdom. One is driven by emotion. The other is guided by peace. When people hurt us, disappoint us, or disrespect us, our first instinct is often to react. We want to explain ourselves, defend our choices, prove them wrong, or make them understand our point of view. Sometimes we replay conversations in our minds for days, imagining the perfect response we wish we had given. The strange thing is that even when the conversation ends, it often continues inside our heads. That is where the real suffering begins. Ignoring someone in the healthiest sense does not mean pretending the event never happened. It means refusing to allow that event to occupy your thoughts long after it is over. It is the decision to stop feeding your emotional energy into people who have already taken more than they deserve. Imagine holding a burning piece of charcoal in your hand because you want someone else to feel the pain. The longer you hold it, the more you burn yourself. Resentment works the same way. The other person may have already moved on with their life while you continue carrying anger, disappointment, and frustration every single day. Letting go is finally putting the charcoal down. Many people believe letting go means losing. In reality, it is often the greatest victory you will ever experience. Why? Because the moment you stop trying to control another person's behavior, you regain control over your own emotions. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to let go is the desire for closure. We want an apology. We want an explanation. We want justice. We want the other person to admit they were wrong. Sometimes that happens. Very often it does not. Some people will never understand the pain they caused. Others understand perfectly, but simply do not care. Waiting for those people to suddenly change can keep you emotionally trapped for years. Your healing cannot depend on someone else's awareness. It has to begin with your own decision. Think about a tree during autumn. Every year it releases leaves that once gave it life. The tree does not cling desperately to each leaf, begging it to stay. It lets go because it understands that holding on to what no longer serves it prevents new growth from arriving. Human beings often do the opposite. We cling to broken relationships, painful memories, unfair criticism, and old disappointments because they have become familiar. Even when they hurt us, they feel safer than the uncertainty of moving forward. But growth has always required release. You cannot fill your hands with new opportunities while refusing to let go of old burdens. This does not mean pretending painful experiences never mattered. Every disappointment teaches something valuable. Every betrayal reveals something important about trust. Every rejection helps clarify who truly belongs in your life. The lesson is worth keeping. The pain is not. Another misunderstanding is believing that forgiveness and letting go are exactly the same thing. They are connected, but they are different. Forgiveness is releasing the desire for revenge. Letting go is releasing the emotional attachment that keeps pulling you back into the past. You may forgive someone and still decide they no longer belong in your life. You may wish someone well while also choosing never to give them another opportunity to hurt you. This is not bitterness, it is wisdom. Healthy boundaries often look harsh to people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. That is why some individuals react negatively when you begin protecting your peace. They may accuse you of changing, becoming distant, or acting differently. The truth is, you have changed. You are no longer willing to sacrifice your emotional well-being simply to keep everyone comfortable. That is growth, not selfishness. There is also an important difference between avoiding problems and letting them go. Ignoring responsibilities, avoiding difficult conversations, or refusing to address important issues is emotional avoidance. Those problems usually grow larger over time. Letting go is different. It happens after you have done what you reasonably can. You have communicated honestly. You have acted with integrity. You have taken responsibility for your part. After that, continuing to argue, explain, or chase understanding often becomes unnecessary suffering. Sometimes silence accomplishes what endless conversations never could. Imagine throwing a stone into a lake. The water ripples for a while before becoming calm again. Your mind works in much the same way. Every painful experience creates emotional ripples. If you keep throwing the same stone into the water by replaying old memories every day, the surface never becomes still. Peace requires allowing the water to settle. This is why attention is so powerful. Whatever receives your attention grows stronger. If you constantly replay insults, they become larger. If you repeatedly revisit betrayal, the wound stays open. If you continually imagine arguments that never happen, your mind remains trapped in battles that exist only in memory. Choosing not to feed those thoughts is not denial. It is emotional discipline. Perhaps the hardest part of letting go is accepting that life is not always fair. Good people are sometimes misunderstood. Kind people are sometimes betrayed. Honest people are sometimes criticized. You cannot control these realities, but you can control how long they continue occupying your heart. Your future deserves more attention than your past. Every minute spent reliving old pain is a minute stolen from the life you are trying to build. As you move forward, remember this simple truth. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering without allowing the memory to control you. It is acknowledging what happened without allowing it to define who you become. Ignoring people in its healthiest form is not about pretending they never existed. It is about refusing to let their actions determine your emotional future. When you stop chasing explanations that never come, stop fighting battles that never end, and stop carrying burdens that were never yours to keep, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes quieter, your heart becomes lighter, and for the first time in a long time, you begin to experience what real peace actually feels like. Because the strongest people are not those who win every argument. They are the ones wise enough to know which arguments are no longer worth carrying. Chapter 5. Setting Boundaries Without Feeling Guilty. One of the greatest myths about kindness is that kind people should always be available. They should always say yes. They should always forgive immediately. They should always sacrifice their own needs to make others comfortable. At first glance, these beliefs may seem noble. After all, generosity, compassion, and patience are admirable qualities. But when kindness exists without boundaries, it slowly transforms into self-neglect. Instead of helping others from a place of strength, you begin giving away pieces of yourself until there is very little left. This is why boundaries are not walls built to keep good people out. They are doors that allow healthy relationships to enter while keeping unhealthy behavior outside. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. They fear that saying no will make them appear selfish, rude, or uncaring. They worry that others will become disappointed or angry. As a result, they continue saying yes, even when every part of them wants to say no. Over time, this habit creates a dangerous pattern. You begin agreeing to things that exhaust you. You lend your time when you desperately need rest. You solve problems that others should solve themselves. You attend events you do not want to attend. You answer messages immediately because you fear disappointing someone. You become available to everyone except yourself. The irony is that people who never establish boundaries often believe they are keeping relationships healthy. In reality, they are teaching others that their time, energy, and emotional well-being are always available without limits. People generally treat us according to the standards we consistently accept. If you continually allow interruptions, people will assume interruptions are acceptable. If you never object to disrespect, many will believe disrespect has no consequences. If you constantly sacrifice your own priorities, others may come to expect those sacrifices as normal. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Imagine owning a beautiful garden. You carefully plant flowers, water them every day, and remove weeds before they spread. Now imagine leaving the gate open at all times. Anyone can walk in, pick the flowers, damage the plants, or leave trash behind. Would protecting your garden make you selfish? Of course not. It would make you responsible. Your emotional life is much like that garden. Your peace, confidence, dreams, and energy require protection. Without healthy boundaries, negativity enters easily while peace quietly disappears. One of the hardest words for many people to say is a simple two-letter word: no. Not because the word itself is difficult, but because of what they imagine will happen afterward. What if they stop liking me? What if they think I'm selfish? What if they become angry? These fears often keep people trapped in lives filled with obligations they never truly chose. The truth is that every time you say yes to something that violates your values or drains your energy, you are silently saying no to something more important. You say no to rest, no to your family, no to your goals, no to your health, no to your peace. Every yes has a hidden cost. Wise people understand that boundaries are simply decisions about where that cost should be paid. There is another misconception worth addressing. Many believe boundaries require confrontation. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, they require consistency instead. You do not have to argue every time someone crosses a line. Often, calm repetition is more powerful than emotional confrontation. If someone repeatedly interrupts your personal time, you can politely explain when you are available. If someone expects immediate responses to every message, you do not need to abandon your responsibilities to satisfy that expectation. If someone continually speaks disrespectfully, you can calmly end the conversation rather than engaging in endless arguments. Healthy boundaries are expressed through actions just as much as words. One reason guilt appears so quickly after setting boundaries is because many people have been conditioned to measure their worth by how useful they are to others. They feel valuable only when solving problems. They feel loved only when sacrificing. They feel accepted only when constantly giving. But your value as a human being has never depended on how exhausted you become serving everyone else. You deserve rest without earning it. You deserve respect without begging for it. You deserve peace without apologizing for it. Some people will resist your new boundaries. Do not be surprised by this. Individuals who benefited from your endless availability may become uncomfortable when that availability changes. They may accuse you of becoming distant, selfish, or different. In one sense, they are right. You have changed. You are no longer confusing self-sacrifice with love. You are learning that healthy relationships involve mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. The people who genuinely care about you may need time to adjust, but they will ultimately respect your boundaries because they value you, not merely your usefulness. Those who become angry because you protect your peace often reveal something important. They were more attached to your compliance than your well-being. That realization can be painful. It can also be incredibly freeing. Remember that boundaries are not punishments. They are expressions of self-respect. You are not trying to control another person's behavior. You are simply deciding what behavior you are willing to accept in your own life. That distinction changes everything. Consider a close friend who constantly calls late at night to discuss problems that could easily wait until morning. You care deeply about them, but after months of interrupted sleep, your health begins to suffer. Setting a boundary does not mean abandoning your friend. It means saying, "I want to support you, but let's talk during the day when I can give you my full attention." Notice the difference. The relationship remains. The unhealthy pattern changes. That is what healthy boundaries accomplish. They protect both people instead of slowly damaging one. As you continue practicing this skill, you will discover something remarkable. Every respectful boundary strengthens your confidence. Every honest no reinforces your self-respect. Every protected hour gives you more energy for the people and goals that truly matter. Eventually, boundaries stop feeling uncomfortable because you recognize them for what they truly are, not barriers against love, but foundations for healthier relationships. The goal is not to become unavailable. The goal is to become intentional. Give your time generously, but not carelessly. Offer kindness freely, but not at the expense of your dignity. Help others when you can, but never so completely that you abandon yourself in the process. Because the healthiest relationships are not built on endless sacrifice. They are built on mutual respect, honest communication, and the quiet understanding that protecting your own peace allows you to offer your very best to the people who truly deserve it. Chapter 6. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. Have you ever walked away from a conversation only to realize you spent most of it defending your choices? You explained why you chose your career. You explained why you ended a relationship. You explained why you declined an invitation. You explained why you needed time alone. You explained your dreams, your priorities, your decisions, and even your emotions. And after all that explaining, you noticed something surprising. The other person still didn't understand. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. Many people spend years believing that if they could just find the right words, everyone would finally understand them. They rehearse conversations in their minds, searching for perfect explanations that will erase criticism and gain approval. But there is a difficult truth that emotional maturity eventually teaches us. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some people are listening to learn. Others are listening to judge. No amount of explanation can change the mind of someone who has already decided what they believe about you. This realization can be painful, but it is also incredibly freeing. Over-explaining often has very little to do with communication. It usually has everything to do with fear. We fear being misunderstood. We fear disappointing people. We fear appearing selfish. We fear rejection. So we keep talking, hoping that if people know enough details, they will finally approve of our decisions. But approval is not the same as understanding, and understanding is not something you can force. Think about how often you apologize for perfectly reasonable choices. I'm sorry, but I can't come. I'm sorry, but I need some time. I'm sorry, but I have other plans. Many of these situations require no apology at all. Yet we apologize because we have been conditioned to believe that protecting our own needs somehow requires permission. It doesn't. Imagine someone who decides to leave a secure corporate job to start a small business. Friends question the decision. Family members express concern. Co-workers predict failure. For months, this person explains the business plan, the research, the savings, and the long-term vision. Every explanation is met with another objection. Eventually, something changes. Instead of continuing to defend the dream, the person quietly begins building it. Years later, the successful business becomes the explanation. The people who doubted it either understand or they don't. Either way, endless explanations were never what created success. Consistent action was. There is a valuable lesson hidden inside that story. Results speak a language that arguments never can. This does not mean you should never explain yourself. There are moments when communication strengthens relationships. Honest conversations with trusted friends, supportive family members, loving partners, and respectful colleagues are important. Healthy relationships thrive on openness and understanding. The problem begins when explaining becomes a habit rather than a necessity. Ask yourself a simple question whenever you feel the urge to defend every decision. Am I sharing because this person genuinely deserves to know, or because I'm afraid they won't approve? That single question can reveal more than hours of self-analysis. One reason over-explaining is so exhausting is because it quietly transfers authority over your life to other people. Every explanation becomes a request for validation. You stop making decisions based on your values and start making them based on how easily they can be justified to everyone else. Eventually, your own voice becomes difficult to hear beneath the opinions of everyone around you. Confidence cannot grow in that environment. Confidence grows when your decisions come from clarity instead of constant approval seeking. Another important truth is that people understand life through the lens of their own experiences. Someone who values security may never fully understand your desire for adventure. Someone who fears change may criticize your willingness to take risks. Someone who has never pursued a dream may believe your ambition is unrealistic. That doesn't make them bad people. It simply means they are interpreting your choices through a different map of the world. You do not have to convince every traveler that your destination is worthwhile. You simply have to keep walking. There is also tremendous power in becoming comfortable with being misunderstood. This idea may seem uncomfortable at first. Most of us have spent our lives trying to avoid misunderstanding, but think about the people who changed history. Innovators were misunderstood. Artists were misunderstood. Entrepreneurs were misunderstood. Writers, scientists, leaders, and visionaries were often criticized long before they were celebrated. If they had spent their lives explaining themselves to every critic, they would have had little time left to accomplish anything meaningful. Being misunderstood is often the price of thinking differently. Another hidden danger of over-explaining is that it attracts endless debate. Some people are not asking questions because they are curious. They are asking questions because they enjoy challenging every answer. You explain one decision, they question another, you clarify your intentions. They find another reason to disagree. The conversation becomes a moving target that can never be completed. At some point, wisdom recognizes that silence is more productive than another paragraph of explanation. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Sometimes people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you speak, and that is okay. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase through an airport. Every unnecessary explanation you carry is another item packed inside. A comment you didn't need to answer, a criticism you didn't need to defend, an opinion you didn't need to change. Eventually the weight becomes exhausting. What would happen if you started unpacking those unnecessary burdens? Life would become lighter. Your conversations would become calmer. Your confidence would become quieter, but much stronger. One of the most powerful phrases you can learn is also one of the simplest. This is what's right for me. Notice that it does not attack anyone else's choices. It does not demand agreement. It does not seek approval. It simply acknowledges your right to make decisions about your own life. There is dignity in that kind of confidence. As you become more comfortable trusting yourself, you will notice another transformation. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing approval from people who freely withhold it. You stop wasting emotional energy proving your worth to those who have already decided not to see it. Instead, you invest that energy in living well, because ultimately, your life is not an argument to be won. It is a story to be lived. The people who truly love you will ask questions because they care, not because they want to control you. The people who respect you will accept that your path may look different from theirs, and those who refuse to understand after every honest effort have revealed something important. The problem was never your explanation. It was their willingness to listen. So stop carrying the impossible responsibility of making everyone agree with your choices. Speak honestly when honesty is needed. Explain when explanation adds value. But once you have acted with integrity, let your actions become your loudest voice. Because a peaceful life is rarely built by winning arguments. It is built by quietly walking the path that aligns with your values, even when not everyone applauds your direction. The day you stop explaining yourself to everyone is the day you begin trusting yourself enough to live freely. And that freedom is worth far more than anyone else's approval. Chapter 7. Silence. Your greatest emotional superpower. In a world where everyone feels the need to react immediately, silence has become a rare form of strength. Someone criticizes you and you're expected to respond. Someone insults you online and you're encouraged to fight back. Someone misunderstands your intentions and you feel pressured to explain yourself. We have been taught that every accusation deserves a defense, every disagreement requires an argument, and every attack demands a response. But the strongest people understand something that most never learn. Not every battle deserves your participation. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness. People assume that if you choose not to respond, you have nothing to say or nothing to defend. In reality, silence often requires far more strength than speaking. Anyone can react. Very few people can remain calm when emotions are trying to take control. Think about a calm lake early in the morning. Even when the wind blows across its surface, the deeper water remains undisturbed. Emotional strength works the same way. Surface events may create temporary ripples, but inner peace remains steady because it is rooted in something deeper than other people's opinions. Unfortunately, many people spend their lives reacting instead of responding. There is an important difference. A reaction is immediate, emotional, and often impulsive. A response is thoughtful, intentional, and guided by wisdom rather than emotion. When someone insults you, your first emotional reaction may be anger. You may want to prove them wrong. You may want to return the insult. You may want to win the argument. But before you speak, ask yourself one simple question. Will this conversation improve my life tomorrow? Most of the time, the answer is no. Imagine receiving an insulting message late at night. Your heart begins to race. You immediately start typing a long reply, determined to defend yourself. Every sentence becomes sharper than the last. You hit send, believing you finally said everything that needed to be said. Instead of ending the conflict, the conversation grows larger. Another message arrives, then another. Hours pass. You lose sleep. Your concentration disappears the next day. The emotional weight follows you long after the conversation ends. Now imagine a different choice. You read the message. You pause. You recognize your emotions without allowing them to control your actions. Instead of replying immediately, you set your phone aside and continue with your evening. The next morning, the urge to respond has almost disappeared. What felt like an emergency the night before now seems surprisingly unimportant. Nothing magical happened. You simply allowed time to become your ally instead of your enemy. That is the quiet power of silence. Silence is not about suppressing emotions. It is about refusing to let emotions make decisions on your behalf. There is another reason silence is so powerful. It protects your dignity. Words spoken in anger are difficult to take back. Even sincere apologies cannot erase the memory of harsh statements once they have been spoken. Many relationships have been damaged by a few emotional minutes that people regretted for years afterward. Silence creates space between emotion and action. Within that space lives wisdom. Some people thrive on emotional reactions. They provoke arguments because arguments give them attention. They criticize because they enjoy watching others become defensive. They create drama because drama gives them a sense of importance. When you refuse to react, you quietly remove the reward they were seeking. The conversation often ends because there is nothing left to feed it. This does not mean remaining silent in every situation. There are moments when speaking up is necessary. Silence should never be confused with accepting abuse, tolerating injustice, or avoiding important conversations. If someone repeatedly violates your boundaries, honest communication is essential. If someone's safety is at risk, your voice matters. If truth needs to be defended with integrity and respect, courage sometimes requires speaking. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Speak when your words create value. Remain silent when your words would only create more noise. One of the greatest benefits of silence is that it helps you observe. People reveal themselves over time. When you stop interrupting every uncomfortable moment with explanations or arguments, you begin noticing patterns that were previously hidden. You notice who listens. You notice who respects boundaries. You notice who only contacts you when they need something. You notice who genuinely celebrates your success. Silence becomes a teacher. It allows reality to reveal itself without constant interference. There is an old saying, "Empty vessels make the most noise." While the saying is not always true, it reminds us that confidence rarely needs to announce itself. People who are secure in themselves do not feel compelled to win every disagreement. They understand that peace is more valuable than being right. They know that maturity is measured not by how loudly someone speaks, but by how wisely they choose their words. Consider some of the most respected leaders, mentors, and wise individuals you have ever known. They were rarely the loudest voices in the room. They listened before speaking. They observed before judging. They chose their words carefully because they understood that every sentence carries emotional weight. Silence gave those words greater impact. Imagine life as a garden. Every argument, complaint, and unnecessary conflict is like a weed competing for space. Every moment of thoughtful silence is like watering the flowers you actually want to grow. Where your attention goes, your emotional life follows. If you constantly water conflict, conflict grows. If you water peace, peace grows. The choice belongs to you every single day. As you practice this emotional discipline, you will notice that fewer things disturb you. People's opinions lose their power. Petty arguments become easier to walk away from. Criticism no longer feels like an attack on your identity. Instead of asking, "How should I respond?" you begin asking a better question. Does this deserve my energy? Most of the time, the answer will surprise you. The strongest people are not those who have the perfect comeback. They are the ones who understand that not every invitation to conflict deserves acceptance. Sometimes your greatest victory is not winning the argument, it is protecting your peace. Because silence is not the absence of strength. Silence is strength under control. And when you learn to master that strength, you stop allowing other people's emotions to become your own. That is the moment your peace becomes truly untouchable. Chapter 8. Healing from Rejection and Criticism. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences a human being can face. It doesn't matter whether it comes from a relationship, a job interview, a friendship, a family member, or even a stranger's harsh opinion. The emotional sting often feels deeply personal. In a single moment, we begin questioning our worth, our abilities, and sometimes even our identity. We wonder if we were not good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, or worthy enough. Yet the greatest mistake we can make is believing that rejection defines who we are. In reality, rejection is an experience, not an identity. One of the reasons rejection hurts so much is because our minds naturally connect it with belonging. Since ancient times, human survival depended on being accepted by a group. Being excluded could mean danger, isolation, or even death. Although modern life is very different, our brains still respond to rejection as if our survival were being threatened. That is why a single no, a broken relationship, or a harsh criticism can trigger emotions far greater than the situation itself deserves. Understanding this helps us realize that our emotional reaction is natural, but it does not have to control our future. Many people spend years trying to avoid rejection altogether. They avoid applying for better jobs because they fear hearing no. They never confess their feelings because they fear being turned away. They remain silent instead of sharing their ideas because they fear criticism. Ironically, in trying to avoid rejection, they reject themselves first. They deny themselves opportunities before life even has the chance to answer. The fear of temporary discomfort becomes the reason they never discover what they were truly capable of achieving. Every successful person has experienced rejection. Authors have had books rejected by publishers. Entrepreneurs have been turned away by investors. Athletes have lost important competitions. Inventors have watched their ideas be dismissed before they were finally accepted. The difference is not that successful people avoided rejection. The difference is that they refused to allow rejection to become the final chapter of their story. They treated it as information instead of a life sentence. Criticism follows a similar pattern. Not all criticism is harmful. In fact, some of the greatest personal growth comes from honest feedback delivered with good intentions. A trusted mentor may point out weaknesses you cannot see. A close friend may help you recognize habits that are holding you back. Constructive criticism is uncomfortable, but it is valuable because its purpose is improvement rather than humiliation. Learning to separate constructive guidance from destructive negativity is one of the most important emotional skills you can develop. Destructive criticism, however, has a very different purpose. It often comes from insecurity, jealousy, frustration, or misunderstanding. Some people criticize because they feel threatened by your progress. Others criticize because they project their own fears onto your dreams. Still others simply enjoy finding faults because it temporarily makes them feel superior. Their words may sound convincing, but they reveal far more about the speaker than the person being criticized. Once you understand this, criticism begins to lose much of its emotional power. Imagine a young artist who spends months creating a painting with passion and dedication. Hundreds of people admire the work, but one visitor dismisses it as ordinary. If the artist becomes obsessed with that single negative opinion, the joy of creating begins to disappear. Eventually, fear replaces creativity, and every future painting is shaped by anxiety instead of inspiration. But if the artist remembers why the journey began, to create, to grow, and to express something meaningful, then one stranger's opinion no longer has the power to define the future. The same principle applies to every area of life. Your purpose must always be stronger than someone else's criticism. Healing from rejection begins with changing the questions you ask yourself. Instead of asking, "Why wasn't I good enough?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Instead of saying, "I failed," remind yourself, "This attempt didn't work." These small changes in language create enormous changes in perspective. They separate your identity from your temporary circumstances. You are not your mistakes. You are not your setbacks. You are not someone else's opinion of you. Another important step in healing is allowing yourself to feel the pain without allowing it to become permanent. Many people either suppress their emotions completely or become trapped inside them. Neither approach leads to healing. Healthy emotional recovery means acknowledging disappointment, grieving when necessary, and then gradually choosing to move forward. Emotions are meant to be experienced, not carried forever. Like storms, they eventually pass if we stop feeding them with endless rumination. It is also helpful to remember that rejection often redirects us towards something better. Looking back, many people realize that opportunities they once desperately wanted would have prevented them from discovering even greater possibilities. The job they didn't get led them to a career they loved more. The relationship that ended made room for someone healthier. The failure that once seemed devastating became the lesson that ultimately created success. At the time, rejection feels like a closed door. Years later, it often reveals itself as a change in direction. Building emotional resilience requires trusting that your value exists independently of outcomes. A rejection letter cannot reduce your character. A failed attempt cannot erase your potential. Someone else's inability to recognize your worth does not mean that worth has disappeared. Diamonds remain valuable even when someone fails to recognize them. Your value works the same way. As you continue your journey, remember that every meaningful life includes moments of rejection, disappointment, and criticism. These experiences are not signs that you are on the wrong path. Often, they are evidence that you are courageous enough to pursue something that matters. Those who never risk rejection rarely achieve anything extraordinary because growth always requires vulnerability. The goal is not to become someone who never feels hurt. The goal is to become someone who heals without becoming bitter, who learns without losing confidence, and who continues moving forward despite temporary setbacks. Every rejection carries a lesson. Every criticism offers a choice. You can allow them to weaken your spirit, or you can use them to strengthen your character. In the end, the opinions that matter most are not the ones spoken by strangers, but the quiet voice within you that says, "Keep going." Listen to that voice. It knows something criticism never will. Your future has not been written yet, and one moment of rejection has no power to decide the story of your life unless you allow it to. Chapter 9. Choosing the voices that deserve your attention. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are surrounded by voices. Some come from the people closest to you. Others come from co-workers, relatives, teachers, friends, podcasts, news headlines, books, advertisements, and social media. Then there are the invisible voices, the memories of old criticisms, childhood expectations, past failures, and the doubts that quietly echo inside your own mind. Not all of these voices deserve your attention. One of the greatest mistakes people make is treating every opinion as equally important. They believe that every criticism deserves consideration, every suggestion requires action, and every judgment should influence their decisions. The result is a mind filled with conflicting advice and constant confusion. One person tells you to take more risks, another tells you to play it safe. One encourages your dreams, another calls them unrealistic. If you try to satisfy every voice, you eventually lose the ability to hear your own. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Unlike money, you cannot earn more time or create more mental energy. Every moment you spend listening to the wrong voices is a moment taken away from your own growth. This is why choosing who influences your thinking is one of the most important decisions you will ever make. Imagine your mind as a beautiful garden. Every voice you allow into your life plants a seed. Encouraging words grow into confidence. Wise advice grows into better decisions. Gratitude grows into peace, but constant negativity plants weeds. Fear, doubt, jealousy, resentment, and insecurity begin spreading through your thoughts until they crowd out everything healthy. If you never choose what enters your mind, your emotional garden will eventually be overrun by weeds. This is why successful people are extremely careful about the influences they allow into their daily lives. They understand that every repeated message eventually becomes a belief. If you constantly hear that you are incapable, you may begin acting as though it is true. If you regularly hear that growth is possible, you begin seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. Your environment quietly shapes your mindset long before you notice the change. One of the first voices you should learn to recognize is the voice of genuine wisdom. Wise people do not tell you only what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear. Their advice is honest but respectful. They challenge your thinking without attacking your character. They encourage growth while also reminding you of your strengths. After speaking with them, you may feel challenged, but you also feel hopeful. These are the people worth listening to. Their goal is not to control your life. Their goal is to help you live it well. Unfortunately, not every opinion comes from wisdom. Some voices are driven by fear. Fearful people often discourage others because they project their own limitations onto everyone around them. They may genuinely care about you, but their advice is filtered through anxiety rather than possibility. If they never pursued their dreams, they may believe dreams are unrealistic. If they are afraid of failure, they may encourage you to avoid every risk. If they settled for less than they truly wanted, they may unconsciously expect you to do the same. This does not make them bad people. It simply means their fears should not become your future. Consider the difference between a mentor and a critic. A mentor points toward improvement. A critic often points only toward flaws. A mentor helps you become stronger. A critic often enjoys making you feel weaker. Learning to recognize this difference protects your confidence without making you resistant to learning. Imagine two people responding to the same presentation you gave at work. A trusted mentor says, "You communicated your ideas clearly. Next time, slow down during the conclusion and maintain more eye contact. You'll become even stronger." Another person says, "That presentation wasn't impressive at all. You're just not good at public speaking." Both people commented on the same event. Only one comment deserves your attention. The first provides direction. The second provides discouragement. One helps you grow. The other attempts to reduce your confidence. Emotional maturity is recognizing that not every opinion carries equal weight. There is another voice that deserves careful attention, your own inner dialogue. Long after other people stop criticizing you, your own thoughts may continue repeating their words. You may hear an old teacher saying you weren't talented enough, a former friend saying you would never succeed, a family member questioning your abilities. Over time, those external voices become internal beliefs. This is why choosing your inner voice is just as important as choosing your external influences. Ask yourself regularly, would I speak to someone I love the way I speak to myself? If the answer is no, something needs to change. Replace self-condemnation with honest encouragement. Replace "I'm not capable" with "I'm still learning." Replace "I'll never succeed" with "every expert was once a beginner." The voice you hear most often is your own. Make sure it becomes your greatest ally instead of your harshest critic. In today's digital world, protecting your attention has become more important than ever. Social media gives everyone a microphone. Some use it to educate, some use it to inspire, many use it simply to criticize. Anonymous opinions have become easier to access than trusted wisdom. This creates an important responsibility. You must decide whose voices deserve access to your mind. Just because someone has an opinion does not mean they have earned influence. Remember that wisdom is not measured by volume. The loudest voices are not always the wisest. Many people confuse popularity with credibility. They assume that if thousands agree with an opinion, it must be true. History repeatedly proves otherwise. Truth has never depended on popularity. As you continue growing, intentionally build a circle of people whose presence improves your life. Seek friends who celebrate your victories without jealousy. Seek mentors who challenge you without humiliating you. Seek relationships where honesty exists alongside kindness. Choose people who encourage responsibility rather than excuses. Choose conversations that leave you inspired instead of emotionally exhausted. These are the voices that help you become the person you were meant to be. At the same time, learn to reduce your exposure to unnecessary negativity. This does not mean cutting everyone out of your life. It means becoming intentional. Spend less time arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. Spend less time consuming information that creates fear without offering wisdom. Spend less time seeking approval from individuals who have never supported your growth. Every minute reclaimed from negativity becomes available for something meaningful. Read books that expand your thinking. Listen to conversations that strengthen your character. Spend time with people who bring out your best qualities. Most importantly, spend enough quiet time with yourself that you can hear your own values above the noise of the world. Because there comes a point in every meaningful life when you must stop asking, "What is everyone saying?" and begin asking a far more important question, "What is true?" The answer will not always be the loudest voice. Often it will be the calmest. It will remind you that your worth does not depend on public opinion. It will encourage you to stay faithful to your values even when others disagree. It will lead you toward growth rather than comparison, purpose rather than popularity, and peace rather than constant approval. In the end, the quality of your life is shaped not only by the choices you make, but also by the voices you choose to believe. Choose wisely. Because whatever you listen to repeatedly eventually becomes the story you tell yourself, and the story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. Chapter 10. Reclaiming your time, energy, and happiness. Every person is given the same 24 hours in a day, yet some people seem calm, focused, and fulfilled, while others feel constantly overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and stuck. The difference is not always intelligence, talent, or opportunity. More often, it is where they choose to invest their time and energy. Your attention is your most valuable asset. Once you spend it, you can never get it back. That is why reclaiming your time and emotional energy is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Many people believe they are tired because they work too hard. Sometimes that is true. But often they are exhausted because they think too much about things that deserve very little of their attention. They replay arguments that ended days ago. They worry about opinions that should never have mattered. They carry resentment toward people who have already moved on with their lives. Long before the body becomes tired, the mind has already become overwhelmed. Imagine your emotional energy as a bank account. Every decision, conversation, relationship, and responsibility either deposits energy into that account or withdraws from it. Spending time with supportive friends may leave you feeling encouraged. Working toward a meaningful goal may make you feel energized, despite the effort. On the other hand, constant conflict, unnecessary drama, endless comparison, and people-pleasing quietly drain your emotional balance. If you keep making withdrawals without restoring yourself, emotional exhaustion becomes inevitable. One of the biggest thieves of time is the habit of trying to manage other people's opinions. You cannot control what others think of you, yet many people spend years attempting exactly that. They carefully choose every word, every action, and every decision based on how they might be perceived. They worry about disappointing people they rarely see. They seek approval from individuals who contribute nothing meaningful to their lives. In doing so, they sacrifice countless hours that could have been invested in learning, creating, resting, or building the future they truly desire. The truth is simple but powerful. Every minute you spend trying to control someone else's opinion is a minute you cannot spend improving your own life. Many people wait for life to become peaceful before they begin focusing on their goals. They tell themselves they will start writing when criticism disappears. They will launch the business when everyone supports them. They will pursue their dream once every doubt has been answered. Unfortunately, that day never arrives. There will always be opinions, obstacles, and uncertainties. The people who accomplish meaningful things are not those who wait for perfect conditions. They are those who learn to move forward despite the noise. Purpose has a remarkable effect on the human mind. When you become deeply committed to something meaningful, many distractions naturally lose their importance. A person building a meaningful career has less time to participate in unnecessary gossip. Someone focused on improving their health has less interest in comparing themselves with strangers online. A parent devoted to raising kind children spends less energy trying to impress people who have no influence on their family's future. Purpose acts like a compass, continually guiding your attention back to what matters most. This does not mean life should become nothing but productivity. Reclaiming your happiness also requires making room for joy, rest, and meaningful relationships. Many people confuse being busy with living well. They fill every hour with obligations while forgetting to appreciate the present moment. True success is not measured only by achievements, but also by the quality of your daily experiences. A peaceful walk, a heartfelt conversation, time spent with loved ones, or a quiet evening reading a meaningful book often contributes more to lasting happiness than another hour spent worrying about things beyond your control. Another important step in reclaiming your energy is learning the difference between responsibility and emotional responsibility. You are responsible for your actions, your character, and your decisions. You are not responsible for everyone else's happiness, reactions, or expectations. This distinction changes everything. Once you stop carrying emotional burdens that belong to other people, your own life becomes noticeably lighter. Many people unknowingly carry invisible responsibilities that were never theirs to begin with. They feel obligated to solve everyone's problems, fix every disagreement, answer every message immediately, and rescue every struggling person around them. While compassion is admirable, constantly neglecting your own well-being eventually leaves you with nothing meaningful to give. You cannot continuously pour from an empty cup. Imagine boarding an airplane. Before every flight, passengers hear the same safety instruction. In an emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. At first, this advice may seem selfish. In reality, it is practical wisdom. If you cannot breathe, you cannot help anyone else. The same principle applies emotionally. Protecting your own peace is not abandoning others. It is ensuring that you remain healthy enough to genuinely support the people who matter. Reclaiming your time also requires becoming comfortable with missing out. Not every invitation needs to be accepted. Not every debate deserves your participation. Not every trend requires your attention. In today's world, distraction constantly competes for your focus. News updates, endless notifications, social media arguments, and unnecessary comparisons can quietly consume hours every day. The ability to say, "This does not deserve my attention," is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. As you begin protecting your attention, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes calmer. Your decisions become clearer. You stop reacting impulsively and begin living intentionally. Instead of feeling controlled by circumstances, you regain the confidence that comes from directing your own life. Small moments become more meaningful because your thoughts are no longer scattered in 100 different directions. The greatest reward is not simply having more free time. It is experiencing more inner peace. Happiness grows naturally when your attention is invested in things that nourish your soul instead of draining it. Meaningful work replaces meaningless worry. Gratitude replaces comparison. Growth replaces constant approval seeking. You begin waking up with purpose instead of pressure. Remember that every day is an opportunity to decide where your life will go. Every hour you invest in your health, your character, your relationships, your dreams, or your peace is an investment in the person you are becoming. Every hour wasted on unnecessary conflict, endless explanations, or worrying about other people's opinions is an investment in a life you never truly wanted. Your time is your life. Your energy is your future. Your attention shapes both. Choose them wisely, because the life you create tomorrow will always reflect the choices you make today. When you reclaim your time, protect your energy, and focus on what truly matters, you discover a simple truth. Happiness is not something you chase. It is something you create by deciding where your attention belongs. Chapter 11. Becoming emotionally unshakable. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the world will never stop testing them. People will misunderstand you. Some will criticize your choices. Others will doubt your abilities. Life will present unexpected failures, disappointments, and moments of uncertainty. You cannot remove every obstacle from your path, and you cannot control every opinion directed toward you. The question is no longer whether challenges will come. The real question is this: who will you become when they do? Being emotionally unshakable does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean pretending that criticism never hurts or that rejection leaves no mark. Emotional strength is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to feel deeply without allowing those feelings to control your decisions. It is remaining grounded when circumstances try to pull you in every direction. It is choosing your response instead of surrendering to your reaction. Many people mistakenly believe confidence appears overnight. They imagine that one day they will simply wake up fearless, immune to criticism, and completely certain of themselves. But confidence is never built in a single moment. It is built through hundreds of small decisions made every day. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you become stronger. Every time you remain calm instead of reacting impulsively, your emotional foundation becomes more stable. Think about a lighthouse standing on a rocky coastline. Day after day, powerful waves crash against it. Storms come and go. Fierce winds shake everything around it. Yet the lighthouse remains standing because its strength does not come from the weather. It comes from the foundation beneath it. Human beings work the same way. If your confidence depends on praise, success, or public approval, every storm will shake you. But if your confidence is built upon your values, your character, and your purpose, outside circumstances lose much of their power. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is learning to separate your identity from other people's opinions. A compliment does not make you valuable, and a criticism does not make you worthless. Both are temporary opinions viewed through someone else's perspective. Your true value comes from who you are when no one is watching, from your honesty, your integrity, your compassion, and your willingness to continue growing. Imagine an entrepreneur who spent years building a business that many people dismissed. Friends questioned the idea, competitors laughed at the vision, investors rejected proposal after proposal. There were moments of doubt, sleepless nights, and setbacks that seemed impossible to overcome. Yet, instead of allowing every criticism to determine the future, the entrepreneur focused on learning, improving, and moving forward one step at a time. Eventually, the business succeeded, not because the criticism disappeared, but because determination became stronger than doubt. The opinions that once seemed so powerful eventually became little more than distant echoes. This is the quiet strength of emotional resilience. It allows purpose to speak louder than fear. Another important quality of emotionally unshakable people is that they stop taking everything personally. They understand that people's words often reveal more about the speaker than the listener. An angry person spreads anger. An insecure person often criticizes confidence. A jealous person may try to minimize someone else's achievements. Recognizing this truth prevents you from carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to begin with. This does not mean ignoring every piece of feedback. Emotionally strong people remain open to learning because they know perfection is impossible. They welcome constructive criticism from trusted people who genuinely want to help them improve. At the same time, they refuse to give equal importance to careless opinions from individuals who know nothing about their journey. Wisdom is not refusing advice. Wisdom is knowing whose advice deserves your attention. Another habit of emotionally unshakable people is that they do not allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. Everyone experiences moments of frustration, disappointment, fear, and sadness. The difference is that emotionally resilient individuals create space between feeling and action. Instead of making impulsive choices during emotional storms, they pause. They reflect. They allow intense feelings to settle before deciding what comes next. That simple pause often prevents years of regret. Gratitude also plays a powerful role in emotional resilience. When your mind constantly focuses on everything that is missing, criticism feels enormous and problems appear overwhelming. But when you regularly notice what is already good in your life, setbacks become easier to carry. Gratitude reminds you that one difficult moment does not erase countless blessings. It shifts your attention from scarcity to abundance, from fear to appreciation. Emotionally unshakable people also understand that growth is more important than perfection. They do not expect themselves to get everything right. Instead, they view mistakes as teachers rather than enemies. Every failure becomes an opportunity to gain wisdom. Every setback becomes a chance to develop patience, humility, and perseverance. This mindset removes much of the fear surrounding failure, because failure is no longer seen as the opposite of success. It becomes part of the journey toward it. Perhaps the greatest transformation happens when you stop measuring your life by external applause. There will always be someone who is more successful, more talented, or more experienced. If comparison becomes your standard, peace will always remain out of reach. Emotionally strong people compete only with the person they were yesterday. Their goal is steady progress, not public recognition. They celebrate improvement even when nobody notices, because they understand that real success begins on the inside, long before it becomes visible on the outside. As you continue building emotional strength, remember that resilience is not created during comfortable seasons. It is developed during challenges. Every criticism you survive makes you wiser. Every disappointment you overcome makes you stronger. Every difficult decision made with integrity strengthens the foundation of your character. Over time, you become less concerned with proving yourself and more committed to becoming your best self. One day, you will notice something remarkable. The comments that once kept you awake at night no longer disturb your sleep. The rejection that once shattered your confidence no longer defines your future. The opinions that once controlled your emotions become little more than background noise. You begin walking through life with quiet confidence, not because every problem has disappeared, but because you have become stronger than the problems. That is what it means to become emotionally unshakable. It is not about building walls around your heart. It is about building such a strong foundation within yourself that no storm from the outside can easily shake your peace. When your confidence is rooted in your values, your purpose, and your character, you no longer need the world to constantly reassure you. You already know who you are. And once you know that, protecting your peace becomes not just possible, but natural. Chapter 12. A Life Focused on What Truly Matters. Life has a quiet way of teaching us what is truly important. Unfortunately, many people do not recognize those lessons until years have passed. They spend decades chasing approval, trying to satisfy everyone, winning arguments that change nothing, and carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to bear. Then one day, they look back and realize that the moments they valued most were never the applause, the opinions, or the endless pursuit of acceptance. They were the moments of peace, genuine connection, personal growth, and the courage to live authentically. That realization is the heart of everything you have learned throughout this journey. Ignoring people was never the real goal. The real goal was protecting your peace. The real goal was choosing your attention wisely. The real goal was creating a life guided by your own values instead of being controlled by the expectations of others. Every chapter has led to this simple truth. Your life becomes the sum of what you consistently give your attention to. If your attention is constantly consumed by criticism, comparison, resentment, and fear, those emotions slowly become your reality. But if your attention is invested in purpose, gratitude, meaningful relationships, and personal growth, your life naturally moves in that direction. Attention is like sunlight. Whatever you shine it upon grows stronger. This means that every single day you are making an invisible choice. You are choosing whether to water your dreams or your fears, whether to strengthen your confidence or your insecurity, whether to build your future or remain trapped in your past. These choices may seem small in the moment, but over the course of months and years, they shape the person you become. One of the most beautiful discoveries in life is that peace is not something you find somewhere else. It is something you protect within yourself. Many people spend years believing they will finally feel peaceful once everyone approves of them, once every problem disappears, or once life becomes completely predictable. But life has never worked that way. There will always be unexpected challenges, difficult people, and uncertain moments. Waiting for perfect conditions means waiting forever. Instead, peace grows every time you refuse to carry unnecessary conflict. It grows every time you forgive instead of holding resentment. It grows every time you choose purpose over distraction and gratitude over comparison. Inner peace is not created by controlling the world around you. It is created by learning to govern the world within you. As you continue living, remember that every relationship deserves honesty, kindness, and respect, but not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your heart. Some people will walk beside you for many years. Others are only meant to teach you a lesson before moving on. Accepting this reality allows you to appreciate people without becoming emotionally dependent on them. You can love others deeply while still protecting your own well-being. Your values should become the compass that guides every important decision. When you know what truly matters to you, many difficult choices become surprisingly simple. If peace is one of your highest values, you will naturally avoid unnecessary drama. If integrity matters more than popularity, you will tell the truth even when it is uncomfortable. If growth becomes your priority, you will welcome challenges instead of fearing them. Clear values remove much of the confusion that comes from constantly seeking approval. There will still be days when criticism hurts. There will be moments when rejection feels personal. There will be times when old habits try to return, tempting you to explain yourself, please everyone, or worry about opinions that add no value to your life. When those moments come, pause and remember everything you have learned. Remember that your worth has never depended on applause. Remember that silence is often stronger than argument. Remember that healthy boundaries are acts of self-respect. Remember that not every opinion deserves your attention. Most importantly, remember that your peace is your responsibility. No one else can protect it for you. The world will always offer distractions. There will always be voices competing for your attention, inviting you into unnecessary conflict, comparison, and emotional exhaustion. You cannot silence every voice, but you can choose which ones you listen to. That choice is one of the greatest freedoms you possess. Imagine yourself years from now, looking back on this season of your life. What will matter most? It will not be the arguments you won or the strangers you impressed. It will be the moments when you stayed true to yourself. The relationships built on mutual respect, the dreams you had the courage to pursue, the kindness you showed without expecting anything in return, the peace you protected even when the world around you felt noisy. A meaningful life is not measured by how many people approve of you. It is measured by how honestly you lived, how courageously you loved, and how faithfully you remained true to your values. The greatest success is not becoming someone everyone admires. It is becoming someone you deeply respect when you look in the mirror. As this journey comes to an end, let one simple truth remain with you every day. Your attention is your greatest treasure. Spend it carefully. Give it to people who inspire you, to work that fulfills you, to relationships that nourish your soul, and to dreams that make your life meaningful. Let go of what steals your peace, welcome what strengthens your character, and never forget that the person who deserves your greatest loyalty is the person you are becoming. When you learn to protect your peace, set healthy boundaries, and focus on what truly matters, you discover a freedom that no criticism can steal and no opinion can destroy. That freedom has been within you all along. All you have to do is choose it every single day. As you reach the end of this journey, remember that this audiobook was never about teaching you to ignore people out of anger or resentment. It was about helping you reclaim the one thing no one should ever control, your peace of mind. Life will continue to bring opinions, criticism, rejection, and difficult people. Those things are unavoidable. But from this moment forward, you have a choice. You can continue giving your attention to every voice that demands it, or you can become intentional about where your energy goes. Choose peace over proving yourself. Choose boundaries over burnout. Choose purpose over people-pleasing. And choose self-respect over the endless pursuit of approval. There will still be days when you stumble. You may catch yourself overthinking someone's opinion or trying to explain yourself to people who have no desire to understand you. When that happens, be patient with yourself. Growth is not about becoming perfect overnight. It is about making better choices, one day at a time. Never forget that your worth has never depended on applause. Your value is not determined by the number of people who agree with you, admire you, or accept you. Your true strength comes from living in alignment with your values, protecting your inner peace, and becoming the person you are proud to be. As you move forward, let your life speak louder than your explanations. Let your character speak louder than your reputation, and let your peace become more important than winning any argument. Thank you for sharing this journey. May you walk away with a quieter mind, a stronger heart, and the courage to focus on what truly matters. because the greatest freedom begins the day you stop seeking everyone's approval and start choosing yourself.